Thank you for tuning in to another episode of InRange. You see probably the most simplistic firearm one could ever consider, a firearm by modern standards, right here on the table in front of me. This is a 12 gauge single shot break open shotgun. And the reality is, many weapons like this, which are really ostensibly just hunting rifles or hunting shotguns, were pressed into service in the interest of civil rights movements and human rights. And it is the most simple firearm like this that talks to some of the most complex stories in American history. And it's a sad thing that that's the reality. And it's also an interesting note to me that when you look at so much firearms related content, whether it's books, magazines, or videos, how few, if any, of them discuss the reality of the place of the firearm within the civil rights movement or human rights in general. It's always about the gear, the technology, or some battle, but very rarely is it about the place and a purpose that they took, or for good or for bad, within the social structure. So let's go ahead and start off with the premise of how we landed up at the Battle of Hayes Pond. In the 1950s, a man rises to prominence in North Carolina named James Catfish Cole. He's an ordained Baptist minister and a tent evangelist. Tent evangelists, if you're not familiar with them, sort of the precursor to what we see today as TV evangelists. They would wander around the country, set up a tent, and have a week-long or weekend-long hellfire and brimstone type sermon that would draw very large numbers. He also hosted a Sunday radio show called the Free Will Hour. But on top of all that, he was the Grand Dragon of the North Carolina, South Carolina Ku Klux Klan. Previous to the battle at Hayes Pond, James Catfish Cole had already been routed in an attempt to terrorize the community, and Robbie Williams and a number of NAACP members and the Black NRA actually fended him off. That's a topic for another day. But he realized that he couldn't have the fight where he wanted to have it, so he turned his ire towards the Lumbee Nation, or the Lumbee Indians. And in 1957, he starts his campaign with this quote. In an effort to start to instigate their terror campaign against the Lumbee, he has a cross burning in St. Paul, North Carolina, near the home of a Lumbee woman that he accused of having an affair with a white man and therefore racially mixing. Well, the Lumbee hear about this, and of course they know about it beforehand because he announces it via posters and flyers that over 5,000 Klansmen are going to join up at Hayes Pond to terrorize the Lumbee and push them out of our community. That said, the Lumbee had a number of World War II veterans amongst them, and a lot of them, and I can't mention them all, but I'm going to mention three names in particular that are prominent during this particular event. Simone Oxendine, Neil Lowry, and Sanford Loxlear. Simone was a World War II B-17 engineer veteran with over 30 missions under his belt. And when he heard about this Klan rally coming to his community, there's a direct quote from him in which he said that, did he? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Well, January 18th, 1958 comes, and the Klan's going to have their rally near Maxton at the pond to put the Lumbee in their place. Now, previous to this, the local law enforcement warned the Klan that this was probably not the best idea because they understood that the Lumbee were not going to allow them to do this, and they thought that they were warning them for their own safety. Well, as a result, 5,000 didn't show up, but 50 did, many of them with their wives and children in cars with them. And James Catfish Cole sets up the podium, sets up the audio equipment, has a single light there for illumination near the pond. They set up a cross as well, of course, the normal Klan cross burning, which was going to be the culmination of their bigoted orgy. And as the rally starts, a significant number, hundreds of Lumbee, surround the Klan. Most of them armed, if not with guns, at least with rocks, but many firearms are present, shotguns and rifles alike. They realize that they're greatly outnumbered, and the Lumbee start to surround them. Neil Lowry walks right up to them and where the light is hanging for their illumination, and either breaks the light with the butt of his rifle or shoots it out. Most accounts say that he fires the gun and destroys the light, at which point a number of the Lumbee fire their weapons into the air, and it terrorized the Klansmen. The Klansmen realize they are not just outnumbered, significantly outgunned. Some of the Klansmen attempt to return fire and panic while trying to flee. They don't hit anyone. 4 of the Klansmen are wounded in this, but no one's killed. The Klansmen flee with such disarray and are routed in such a way that they leave their women and children behind. In fact, James Catfish Cole's wife and child ran to their car and started the car in an attempt to get away from this obvious rout, landed up ditching the car in a ditch and got stuck. And they actually help James Catfish Cole's wife and child by pushing the car out of the ditch to help her get home. With that said, this was an incredible achievement. The Lumbee celebrate. They go out back to the field where this cross was there to be burned to terrorize them. Lots of Klan paraphernalia laying like dendritis on the field. They find a Klan flag with the prominent KKK on it, pose with it, wrapping it, laughing at their victory over the Klan. And the reality is, James Catfish Cole was ultimately the only one really indicted for anything about this and was sentenced for inciting a riot. He served a year for this. Of course, later was let out and continued to be the Klansman he always intended to be. But what did happen is the Lumbee proved that they were not going to be terrified or oppressed by the Klan, and as a result, the Klan never again had any form of protest or rally in their city, in their county, or in their nation. On this note, I want to say that this is going to be the first of many in the series, and the reality is this type of history is completely left out of the books. In fact, unless you're very specifically looking for it, you'll never find out about it. These people are Americans, and they were fighting for their lives and their rights and their homes against people that were there to destroy them or kill them or worse. And the reality is that when we label it as Black history, it is somehow different and separate from that of the history of James Catfish Cole, which would be then American history. This makes no sense to me. This is all American history, and our struggle for civil rights and the struggle for what we are supposed to be is ongoing to this day. I think it's a outrage that the issue of firearms in the civil rights movement and firearms as a human rights tool in general are left out of the discussion amongst so much of the gun rights community. I have to wonder why that is. And many of the firearms laws that we have on the books today are there as vindictive laws against people of color. And the only reason we're able to cover these type of topics here at InRange TV is because we're not monetized by anyone. We have no sponsors, no overlords, and we're not advertiser friendly to YouTube. In fact, I proactively demonetize the channel, supported only by you, the viewer, via Patreon. If you want to see this kind of content get out to the world, because this is the stuff that should be discussed in firearms culture, I thank you for already being a Patreon supporter and enabling me to do that. If you want to see more of that, and you can, please consider supporting us on Patreon. If you can't, I do understand. Just subscribe to one of my multiple channels. We're greatly distributed, not just on YouTube. You can find us all at inrange.tv. Thank you, and share with your friends.